here today representing Ent Credit Union. It is a local not-for-profit credit union that serves your financial needs along the Front Range. And we are presenting our retirement simulation titled Making the Golden Years Golden. This is going to be an interactive class as much as possible. And I will explain the worksheet part of it here in a second, but we just want to introduce ourselves first. So I'm going to hand it over to my co-pilot, Mike, to introduce himself.
Hey, and is the video right here? Is that the camera? Or
It should be, but you guys are sharing your screen right now, so you don't have it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry you can't see me. My name is Mike. I also work in Ent Credit Union. So I am the financial wellness curriculum developer. So we go out and we do these fun presentations and teach people all about credit, budgeting, and I think this is a very interesting topic, the retirement. It's always fun to think about retirement, and this hopefully will give you a step on how we could get there and just get you thinking about it, because sometimes it's far off in your mind and you're like, that's not going to happen for a while. But really, we need to be saving for it all the time. So we'll go through a few things. So hopefully it helps.
Awesome. Thank you. And my name is Sarah Vickers. My title is Community Educator Lead. So my primary role is teaching classes all up the Front Range, mostly in the northern region from about Castle Rock to Fort Collins. And I started my career as a high school English teacher. And I taught mostly 9th and 12th graders, and we did a lot of college and career planning. So if you remember high school, remember those units about like, where do you want to go to college? What do you want to do for your life? That was stuff I did with my students. And during that time, a lot of my students had questions about finance and money because they didn't feel like it was something they were taught enough about in school. And I became very passionate for helping them with that, helping them figure out that component, explaining the things that they felt like they were missing out on in their education. And when I decided to move to Colorado last January, I was looking for a position where I could go and spread financial wellness out in the community. I found this role at Ent. Now I'm a certified financial counselor through the CUNA program, and I get to teach these classes every day. So I'm really excited to do that and to be here today with you all. Today's retirement simulation is going to help you all envision your retirement, and it's going to help you all figure out how much you might need to save to live the retirement goals that we talk about today. So lots of daydreaming and then a little bit of math is how I like to explain this class. Now, we're going to be using a worksheet that I'll explain here in a second. I just want to make sure everybody has it before I get started. So I'm going to pass out the worksheet to the people who are here in person. And if you need a pen or pencil, let me know. And then for those of you who are on Zoom, I am going to throw in the chat our editable PDF. And I just want to make sure you can open it because there might have been like an email thing. I don't know if you might be able to open it. You all can't click that link, can you? Yeah. Let me do that. The folder has like a VPN thing.
Love it.
I know, right? Jamie, I did email it to you. Did you get it? Okay. I just want to make sure you all get that before we get too far into class. So let me, okay. So if you can send that to them, that would be great. Thank you, Jay. Sorry, the VPN awkwardness makes it difficult to like just copy and paste in the chat. All right, so if you all have any issues with that editable PDF on Zoom, please let us know in the chat or interrupting us out loud, because being able to edit that worksheet is a core part of this class. So if you have any issues, let us know, because we want to make sure you are able to do that. So the first step before we get into the numbers and math and explaining all of that is to do a little bit of daydreaming. So a lot of people haven't spent time to think, what do they want their retirement to look like? Now, maybe you have, and that's awesome, and you already have some ideas, but if you haven't, and if all you thought is, yeah, I'd like to retire someday, spend some time to do a little bit of daydreaming with me. So when you think of retirement, however far from now it may be for you, do you see yourself traveling the world. Some people in retirement want to go see Machu Picchu, or they want to go to France for the first time, see these places that maybe they didn't get the opportunity to before. Do you see yourself pursuing a passion? Some people had to work jobs that they were not necessarily as passionate about as they could be. Now, I hope all of you have positions that you do feel some passion about, but maybe you didn't, and there's some hobbies that you want to explore in retirement, like woodworking or stamp collecting. These are very stereotypical ones that I'm thinking of here, but whatever you're passionate about, maybe that's something you now find time to do in retirement. Or maybe when you think of retirement, you think of living the simple life. For me, when I think of retirement, I just want to sit somewhere and look out and watch horses graze. I'm a horseback rider. I mentioned this in some other classes. And just watching them in the pasture is something that brings me a lot of joy and something that I want to be able to do in retirement. And my partner, when I asked him, hey, how do you envision retirement? He said, I want to sit on a rocking chair on a porch. I was like, this is going to work out. We can sit in a rocking chair on a porch and watch the horses graze, and it will just be perfect. Or do you maybe see yourself settling into a new city? You've had to live somewhere for work or for other reasons your entire life, and now in retirement, you're able to go somewhere else, somewhere new. I see a message in the chat. I'm going to check that just to make sure. Awesome. Thank you, Jenny. Awesome. So before we move on, since there are 3 of us and this is a small class, we have some time to talk about this. Now that we've done a little bit of thinking, how do you envision retirement? What's something you think about?
I want to know.
You want all of
The hobbies, the traveling. I want to know.
That's the best.
Long bucket list.
Okay,
You know, I've
yeah.
traveled the world quite a bit, but I've got a pretty long bucket list. I just go to Stonehenge, go to the Panama Canal. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd like to take a cruise to Alaska. I'm gonna do that this summer.
That would be awesome.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
I would like to do this.
Absolutely. What about those of you on Zoom? What would you like to do? I see some responses in the chat.
Yeah. Holly wants it all.
Holly wants it all. What about you, Karen?
Aaron says hiking, traveling to national parks.
Ooh, that's nice.
Awesome. Yeah. And Mike,
Karen's gonna live her best life.
Mike, what about you?
Mike, I want to ski all winter and hike all summer.
Our coworker Katie, that's what she tries to do here now. She moved to Colorado for a reason, and she skis as much as she can and during the winter and hikes all summer. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
You all, I'm the same way. I love hiking. I moved here in January and I get out as much as I can. So sounds like all of us are some adventurous spirits. So we have that in common. What about you, Jamie?
For me, I do want to travel the world. I want to see things more than do things. Because I know that they probably won't be there for a while or after a while. And so, yeah, I want to see like Machu Picchu. I want to go to Latin America, further spaces and places like that. I've already been to Scotland, so then it's just going deeper into Europe. So things like
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing these dreams, everyone. And we're going to come back to these as we go through class.
Karen has a bucket list of Mount Kilimanjaro.
Oh my,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I have a friend who's from Africa, and she called me recently and was like, hey, do you want to hike Mount Kilimanjaro with me? And I was like, I'm going to have to do a lot of working out between now and then, but that would be really amazing.
My grandmother did the Pacific Crest Trail.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
awesome.
she definitely got some big shoes to fill.
Yeah. Well, we are all already one step ahead of a lot of people. This won't click. There we go. Okay. Because a lot of people don't know what type of lifestyle they want in retirement and haven't taken that second that it took us to even think about these dreams that they have. So we're already that one step ahead of a lot of people. And then they also don't know if they're saving enough to live that lifestyle that they envision, that they want. And so they also don't know, as a part of that, at what age they can afford to retire. So this class is shaped around, one, helping you figure out those dreams, and then 2, figuring out those very technical answers of how much that might cost me, how much I need to save to live that lifestyle I want, and when might I be able to do that? So this class will help you answer those questions using a little bit of math, a little bit of activities, and a whole lot of daydreaming. So that lifestyle worksheet that we sent you is going to be what we walk through during this class today. And you will see on the lifestyle worksheet 7 different categories, from food and clothing all the way down to the gifts and donations. And there is an other category in there as well, because we want to make sure we have a buffer for some things that don't fall into these categories. We're going to go through each of them and tell you the national average that people spend in retirement on that category, as well as what a high and what a low might look like. And we're going to frame these in terms of percentages. Now, a lot of the times when we teach this class, people are like, percentage of what? Well, it's the percentage of the money that is their post-retirement income that they need to save. I will make it make sense later. What you really need to know is that when we give you this range of a low percentage to a high percentage and an average, and describe what each category is and tell you to pick your number, figure out based off of those relative percentages where you think you will fall. And then I will explain the math and how it applies to you after that. It just makes a lot more sense that way. So I know the percentages are a little weird to deal with because you want to know percentage of what. It's just a range that will help you figure out how much you need to save to live that desired lifestyle. Throughout this, I want you all, as we have been already, to be daydreamers and to share the things that you see for yourself in retirement. It's a lot more fun that way. I get to know you all a little bit, and we'll share our own stories as well. And then if you have any questions as we go through, please ask those as well. Don't be shy. We're not here to lecture you. We're here to have a conversation about retirement and our goals. So those are the ground rules for this. And the last thing I need to say before we dive into all of the different categories and the percentages, and this is what the worksheet looks like for reference, is that the numbers will not add up to 100. So when we give you the national average, you will notice that those numbers, they do add up to 100. But your numbers for most people will not, because everybody's retirement dreams are different. And so don't try to make your numbers add up to 100, don't adjust. Just take that range that we give you and fill out what you think you would spend in retirement based off of who you are and who you see yourself to be. So we're going to spend about 3 to 4 minutes on each category, going through what that national average is, what that range is, and we'll ask you each time to write or type in your calculation box how much you think you would spend percentage-wise on that specific category. Does that make sense right now? Okay. I know you just joined us, so it's a retirement simulation. Think about what you want for your own retirement. We're going to give you a national average that you write down in the national average category, and then ask you to pick what you think you would spend in retirement based off of a percentage range. And write that down in your calculation. Now, the percentage is just a range that's relative to a lot of things that we'll explain later. So it's not like you're not thinking percentage of 100,000 or something. You're thinking based off of the range we give you, where do you think you would fall? Does that make sense? Those of you who are in Zoom, do you have the PDFs open? And are you able to edit them?
Mike checking his, Karen says yes.
Okay. They should auto do the math for you. Those of you in person, you have one extra step from your peers, and it's to do some math on your phone at the end of this. So if you have a phone that has a calculator, you can go ahead and pull that out.
We also have a new one on Zoom. Ryan joined us.
Okay. Can you make sure Ryan has the worksheet?
Yep.
So the last part of this is that as we go through each category, it is critical that you get your number down as we talk about it. And Ryan, I'll catch you up once you get the PDF if you have any questions, because there are 7 categories here. And once we move on, you're like, wait, what was the range for that? So try to get them as we go along. All right. You can go ahead and write 5% in the other category, because that one is just a catch-all 5%. So where it says other, those of you who are in here, 5% in your calculation, and those of you on Zoom, 5% in your calculations. All right, are there any questions before we get started? All right, I'm gonna pass it over to Mike.
Just me in the chat.
Okay.
Okay,
Ah,
cool.
you're good,
Yeah.
I'm
If anything
ready
comes
to-
up, you
Yeah,
stop us,
can
because
read that,
I won't
sometimes we
know.
go along.
I don't pay attention, so.
All right,
You're
Yes.
good, yeah. that's what
Cool,
I'm here for.
thank you, Sarah, I appreciate it. So we won't add up to 100, and let's jump into our first category. So first category is food and clothing, one of my favorites. And this is two categories in one. So we're talking food, and that includes eating out as well as grocery shopping. So all the food and then clothing. So as Sarah was saying, here are the averages. So average is 18%. So in that first column that says national average, you could go ahead and jot that in, or if you're on Zoom, you could type that into your PDF. So 18% is what the average individual or couple spends on food and clothing. Correct, yep, exactly. And so at the high end, we have 25%, and at the low end, we have 12%. So let's just talk about this a little bit, and then I'll give you guys a minute to jot in whatever you think yours will be based on your lifestyle.
Wait, can I add a factor here?
Yeah.
I think I forgot to mention that it helps to have the example. Your calculation, your number doesn't have to be one of the numbers on the screen. This is just to inform you what that range is for high to low. And so if you think you're somewhere in the middle, pick whatever number you think reflects you. If you think you'd be extreme, beyond above average or beyond below average, then you can go below these numbers as well.
There, cool. Okay, so there's average, but let's jump to the above average category first. So what does it mean if you are spending more than the national average? Well, the first thing is think about how often you like to eat out and what you plan to do in retirement. So if you tend to get groceries and cook all your stuff at home, that is more bang for your buck. When you eat out, it tends to be more expensive. So if you plan on, really dining out quite often and you're like, yeah, I want to go and explore new meals and go to all the cool restaurants, that would be more in the above average category. So you eat out frequently. And then it kind of goes down from there. So if you're average, maybe you're like, oh, I go out sometimes, but then I also cook. I like to cook at home. So then you would fit more into the average category. And then below average is maybe you just eat out once in a blue moon. You don't like to eat out too often. You more prefer to cook at home. So those are some factors to keep in mind. How frequently do you like to eat out? Another thing to keep in mind is your taste in food. And this goes for both cooking at home and eating out. Some people, like to eat off the dollar menu. Other people, they find the fanciest steak on the menu or the most expensive item. So what are your tastes like? And you know yourself best. When you go to eat out, are you eating the more expensive foods? Maybe you're going to, restaurants that are, moderately priced. Maybe you go to fast food places. So something else to keep in mind. And before we jump into the clothing category, one more thing to keep in mind is how much entertaining you plan to do. So if you are someone who likes to have everybody at the house, you invite all your friends and family over. I know we've got the holidays coming up. Are you the person who cooks for everybody? That could add to this cost. So just something else to keep in mind. And again, food tastes go for both dining out and eating in. If you're cooking all your meals, but you're making very fancy meals, that could add up too. That's food. Any questions on that?
Comments. I know I'd be a little above average because I love grub club.
Oh, yeah.
Delivery.
Yeah.
Good night, right? Like, when you're going,
Yeah.
I probably am above average. average.
Yeah, I think I am. See, mine's more just eating out. It's like, oh, it's so tempting. So, yeah, I do.
Well, and the new restaurant comes in town.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wanna try it.
yeah. Yeah, so.
I'm retired, what else am I looking forward
Yeah.
to?
Watching diners, right?
There you go, I'm running a guy.
Going around.
Then you gotta go.
So, yeah, one factor to keep in mind. And so grouped along with food is also clothing. So I will say in retirement, generally people tend to buy less clothing than they do when they're working. Just something to keep in mind, but this really goes along with food. So how often are you buying new clothes? If you're buying them frequently, that's going to, raise this cost for you. So how often are you buying clothes? And same with food, how are your clothing tastes? And I mean like brand names. So are you somebody who, you know what, I really like to find the best deals. I like to go to the thrift shops and I can find some cool stuff for pretty cheap. Then you might be more on the below average category here. But if you are more on the high end, maybe you're like, you know what, I really like the nice brands. They just fit better for me. They're a little bit more expensive, but I like that. So think about how frequently you buy new clothes and how expensive your tastes are when it comes. And it goes from, more expensive to least expensive. So again, categories range from 25%, 12%, and anywhere in between. So doesn't have to be one of those numbers. Average is about 18, but you know yourself best. So any questions before we move on? Okay, I'll give you just a few seconds. Jot in your column there. So we've got the national average of 18%. You already wrote that in, but jot in what you think yours would be. So write in a percentage there. I'll give you just a couple seconds.
And do make sure you have it as we go along. 'Cause the
Oh,
numbers,
yes.
there are lots of numbers. So you want to get it while we're on this.
Very good. All right. Got there. So food and clothing. Jumping to our next one is housing. And this would probably be the biggest chunk of your budget. Notice how, on average, it's 32% of your expenditure. So go ahead and jot that in the next row there for housing. So national average is 32%. And we'll do a little bit of discussing here on what an above average, average, and below average looks like. So let's just jump to the above average.
Okay.
Oh, okay, thank you. I appreciate that, yeah. So above average, what would that look like? Well, first off, maybe you want a larger house. Maybe we were just talking about entertaining. Maybe you like to have a lot of friends and family over for the holidays. You like that larger house. So if you tend to have a larger house, that may come with higher mortgage payments. And other things to think about that aren't listed here are insurance, taxes. So think about when you retire, what kind of house do you want to live in? Some people downsize. They're like, you know what? I've had this house my whole life. I raised my family here, but now I just want a little cozy home and it's a little smaller, but it's more manageable. So think about, looking into the future and retirement, what kind of house would you like to have? So larger means probably a little bit on the above average side, comes with higher, mortgage payments, more maintenance. You have, probably higher utilities. You're heating up the house during winter, you're cooling it down during summer, so higher utilities, things of that nature. So trying to picture the house you want to retire in. And, average is kind of in the middle here, medium-sized house, modest mortgage payments, so just average. And then smaller, so below average, maybe you have a smaller house that takes less utilities, less to heat up in the winter, less to cool down. Maybe you paid off your house. Maybe that's a goal of yours. You're not like, you know what? I want to retire with my entire mortgage paid off. That is a goal of mine and I'm going to make it happen. Well, then this would probably be a lower percentage of your expenditures. So your total costs there. So maybe you just don't have a mortgage payment. Maybe, and it doesn't have to be a house. Maybe you want to rent or have an apartment or something of that nature. So it doesn't have to be a house. Below average, maybe you live with children, maybe they take care of you and you don't have that and you're just close with your family. You're really tight knit and you have your own little space and it's cool. It works out for everybody and they don't charge you very much or at all. So you're good there. So yeah.
For this one, I'd love to hear where everyone sees themselves living in their dream version of retirement. This is fun.
For me, it would be in between average and below average. I definitely want a house, but like Mike said, paying it off is definitely the goal too.
So in a house that you bought, but you hopefully paid it off by then. Yeah, yeah.
I'm at about 30%.
Yeah.
So like, it's the same as Jamie, like you bought a house, but you paid it off, so you're doing a little bit better there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't have to share your percentages. I love like house shopping on Zillow for fun, so.
Yeah.
It's like one of my favorite things to talk about. What about you?
My mom has a house on Lake Havasu in Arizona, so I could inherit that. So it'd be nice to have a house in Colorado and a house.
That would be. Yeah.
So I'd be below average.
What about what about
I'm below
our
average.
friends?
Yeah.
Everybody under what
So we have
retirement?
Ryan, Karen, and Mike.
All right. What do y'all think? What's your dream home look like or your retirement?
Yeah, I definitely think I'd be like a multi-house kind of guy too.
My parents recently bought a horse farm with a porch, and I'm like,
Go back.
yeah.
Oh, looks like we got somebody in the chat here. Oh,
But I heard someone speaking, it sounded like Mike.
Oh, I,
Yeah, no, that was me.
Oh, Brian.
Yeah, no, I definitely think I'd be like a multi-house kind of guy. I don't know. I don't know if that kind of slips into to vanity a little bit, but it's just what I want. I'd rather cut corners other places.
that's cool. Yeah, I would love to have multiple houses. Sweet.
Yeah, really what I'd really love to do. I mean, like my kind of end goal is I'd love to get into some kind of like rental properties. Like a good dream of mine's always kind of been to just get like a small apartment complex, like nothing crazy, just 10 units, 15 units, just pay a property management to run it for you. And then, every month you just, sit back and you collect the check.
yeah, yeah, that's exactly, yeah, that would be great, yeah.
And never raise your rent. I feel you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly.
Very cool.
Mike, Karen. Mike says a cabin in the mountains.
I love
Karen
that.
says, my dream is to have a camper van.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Love
A
that.
horse trailer.
Horse
There
farm.
you go, yeah.
I love my travel dreams.
There you go.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing it.
Yes, thank you. And if you have not already, go ahead and again, so national average 30%, jot in your calculation, whatever you think it may be for housing. And jumping to the next category.
Maybe. There we go.
So next up is transportation. So transportation is your automobile and all that comes along with it. So when we're talking about transportation, think of how many vehicles you're having, all the costs associated with them. So fuel, insurance, all of that stuff, taxes, all of that stuff goes into transportation. So on average, that is 17%. So go ahead and jot that in for the national average of 17%. And let's talk about transportation. So what does above average look like? Maybe you have multiple vehicles. So the more vehicles you have, the higher this percentage is going to be for you. So if you plan on maintaining multiple vehicles, that could put you in the more above average category. Also think of all of the things that you need to maintain. Specifically, the brands. So what kind of brands of vehicles do you like? Some are more reasonably priced and some brands are a little bit more expensive when, you have to get them repaired or take them in for maintenance. So are you a person who in retirement wants to drive a nice luxurious vehicle that may cost a little bit more to repair and fix up and maintain? If that's the case, you might be more in the above average category then. Some vehicles are just more expensive to maintain. And
then
then,
that wild hair goofy.
oh yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. See, yeah. That's perfect, yeah.
Nobody will cross me, nobody will pass me on the road.
That's fine. I like it, yeah. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Leave them be.
There you go.
Okay, so, how do you do? So think about how often you want to travel, using a vehicle. Are you somebody who's like, you know what, I really want to take a lot of road trips. That sounds like a blast to me. Well, that'll cost more in fuel, more in maintenance. That will, put you in a higher average here. So think about how you want to use your vehicle. And then last but not least is how often do you replace your vehicle? I know, I have friends and every couple of years they are getting into a new vehicle. They don't like to stay put in whatever vehicle they have. They have to have the newest, latest and greatest, or latest and greatest to them. So if that's the case for you in retirement, you know what? I've retired, I've earned this, I really want to have a new vehicle every few years. Well, then you're going to be above average. So that's kind of what the above average looks. And then we've kind of discussed the average and below, but we'll just kind of hit on it briefly. So smaller vehicles, 2 or 1 large vehicle. So if you have smaller vehicles, they're a little bit easier to maintain, a little bit more cost efficient, and moderate usage. So you're using it to drive around, but you're not going crazy on, cross-country road trips or anything like that. So that is average. And then below average is pretty much the opposite of all we've talked about. Maybe you just have 1 vehicle, it's small, it's easy to maintain. You're not taking up too much with, fuel. You just replace it as needed. It's a good vehicle. You keep it going for as long as you possibly can. You're not trading it in every other year. You don't really use it much, maybe to just go to the grocery store and every now and then to take some trips, but nothing too crazy. Or maybe you don't even have a vehicle. Maybe you're a person who loves biking and you live in a place where you could just bike around or walk to all the places you need, or take public transportation. Maybe you plan on living in a place that offers, great public transportation where you can just take the bus or, scooter everywhere or do whatever. So maybe you don't even need that. So then you'd be on the low end, which is about 10%. So those are the ranges. I'll give you a second here to jot in whatever you think might fall into.
Those of us who are saving money by living in an RV in the housing category, you might be spending more in transportation.
Good call, Sarah.
Consider.
Questions on transportation? And that. Jumping to next category, health and fitness. So let me just explain what this is. So this is all things related to health. So medical bills, medical insurance, maybe you have prescriptions that you need filled. Maybe you have a membership to the gym. This all is encompassed with health and fitness. So our average category, national average, is 10% of expenditure. So you could jot that in the health and fitness category. So 10%. And let's just talk about above average first. So above average, people are spending about 15% of the total expenditure. And this is what it looks like. So this would be someone who's not in the best of health. They have poor health. Maybe they have a pre-existing condition. So think about your own life, what you know of your medical, health and history. And maybe you just know, what, there's something that may come into play. Maybe, I have something that runs in my family or something of that nature. Then that could put you in the above average category. Not fit, poor genetics. Again, we're thinking back to our genetics, a smoker, retiring before age 65. So at that point, you are retiring early. You're not covered by Medicare at that point. So you have longer to pay. So these might be higher. So that is what above average looks like. Average is kind of in the middle there. You may have some health issues, but nothing major. You're moderately fit. You get some exercise. Maybe you have some genetic things in your past, but nothing too major. And you're retiring after age 65, so you get on Medicare and you're able to save some there. Below average is kind of the opposite of everything we've talked about. Maybe you're just, in excellent health, you going to the gym, you're running, yeah, you're bodybuilding. I mean, I see, a lot of people, in the gym who told me they're retired and they're in the best shape of their life because now they don't have to worry about all the stress that came with the job and they were able to lose all this weight and they're going to the gym all the time. So that could, that seems like something you'd be into. Maybe you'd be in the below average category here. No genetic issues, you're not a smoker, maybe you're retiring after the age of 65, so you have longer to account for or less time to account for since you had medical insurance up to that point. Retired military, they have benefits, so a little cheaper then, so that is health insurance.
One thing I want to point out about this category is that 65 difference really does come down to being qualified for Medicare. I was seeing when I was double checking that information yesterday that on average, somebody with Medicare spends a little over $5,000 a year on medical related expenses. And then somebody with without Medicare, it's more than double. It's like 12,000 plus. So that's why that difference can be so big.
Sure. Any questions on health and fitness category? Go ahead and jot in what you think yours will be. And we'll jump to the next category. Leisure, travel, and entertainment. This is one of my favorites, and I think this is definitely a fun thing to think about when we retire. So, oh yeah, I know. Yeah, this one is very, yeah. It can vary.
And
It
as
can
we're
vary.
talking about this, those in the chat, if you can go ahead and share something.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I agree. This one has a wide range because it really depends. Like, what does your life look like in retirement? So leisure, travel, and entertainment, it's like it sounds, it encompasses all of those fun things we usually daydream about when we're thinking of retirement. So average here is 8%. So go ahead and jot that into that category there. And let's just talk about it. So let's start out with the above average category, and we'll kind of go across here. So above average, think of travel. When you picture yourself retired, what do you want to do? Do you want to travel? If you're above average, that would look like traveling overseas. So maybe you're like, you know what? I didn't really get to travel abroad when I was, when I was working so much, but right now I'm in retirement. I'm getting my passport. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to go to Europe. I'm going to go to Australia. I'm going to see everywhere. So if that's the case, international travel, that's awesome. That's cool.
Scooter and all.
All right, I love it.
65.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I'm with you. I want to go to Europe. I want to see all the fun stuff. Australia. But if you're traveling overseas, it's probably going to cost you a little bit more. So you probably fit more into the above average category. And then just taking that across that same idea of travel, maybe you're not as gung-ho as going, out of country. You're happy here, but you still want to see a lot. There's still a lot to see in, the United States. So you want to travel around. You want to see the country. You're not necessarily looking to go overseas. That would be more interstate travel. So maybe you're fitting more into the average category there. And then below average would be, local vacations. You're like, you know what? Lived in Colorado all my life. I never really got to see it as well as I had hoped. There's a lot of great places here. I'm going to just travel around and see what's, here. That could be a local vacation and you're spending a little bit less there. So those are stuff to keep in mind when we're talking about travel. And jumping into hobbies. So think about your hobbies. What do you want to do besides traveling in retirement? Are you somebody who's really into, expensive type hobbies that will cost? Because yeah, exactly. It might cost a little bit more, regular theater. So those theater, I know they put on some cool shows and, a lot of awesome plays you could attend, probably going to cost for ticket prices. Same with sporting events. maybe you're like, you know what, I love the NFL and I'm gonna get season tickets to the Broncos games. Well, it's probably not cheap, so you're gonna be paying for that, but it could be a lot of fun. So if that's the case, you might be more in the above average category. Average, you have hobbies and sports, but maybe they're not taking up a lot of the budget. Maybe you have, sports that you already have the equipment for, you're going out, maybe you're spending a little bit of money, but you're not breaking the bank on it. You just spend, just occasionally. And then below average, maybe you have minimal entertainment or minimal hobbies. Maybe you just like to read a good book. That's what you really want to do in retirement. You're like, you know what? I never had a chance to read. I'm going to go and I'm going to rent all these books from the library and just settle down. And I love to play board games. It's so much fun. I never got to do that. So maybe your hobbies, you have them, but they're not costing you all that much. Then you might fall in the below average category. Horseback riding, I don't know, Sarah. I think that might cost a lot. I'm just guessing here, so.
I would love,
Well-
so we talked, a lot of us seem to like to travel. I would love to hear if you would like to share one hobby that we haven't mentioned. Or if you want to elaborate on skiing, that would be great. But for me, I keep reptiles and mostly geckos. They're surprisingly expensive. So I have two notably expensive hobbies. So I'm gonna, and I like to travel. So this is where a lot of my budget I see going. But any other hobbies you all have that you like to share?
I like to volunteer.
Yeah.
It's a minimal or no cost hobby. So you can volunteer at local elementary schools to read with kids and things of that nature. You can volunteer and read at your local library as well. So yeah, I plan to do that as well as retirement.
I volunteer at like point assisted therapy places.
Yeah.
I will-
So you can get your bits and then.
Yeah.
You have a hobby.
I like to restore old cars, so.
Okay.
I think that friends.
Yeah, your transportation and the hobby.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Question.
Hobbies to share. So
Ryan, do you have one?
parents shared baking and reading.
I'm sorry, are you asking, what hobbies do I have?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Actually, I really love going to concerts. Like a lot. I mean, like kind of excessively. I'm going to Loveland tonight too. I got fifth row from the front to see Alice Cooper. I saw a concert over the weekend. I had VIP tickets to the Gorillas last week. So I'm like just constantly in the know on like what concerts I can go and see.
That's amazing.
That's
Wow,
awesome.
very cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, now I'm going to see Incubus coming on the 9th. We have some pretty good seats to that one too. So that's something I really love to do. I just kind of cut corners other places, like because if I'm going to go see a show, like I always try to get like the best seats I can, because I feel like if I'm far away, what's the point?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
anyway.
you're there, you might as well live it. And then Mike, what about you?
I'd like to do anything that has to do with the outdoors, whether it's skiing, biking, hiking, running.
Awesome, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Sweet. And then
Oh,
click out of the chat.
Yes.
Click back on the thing.
Thank you.
cool, great. Sweet. So hopefully you have, but if you have not, take a second to just jot in what you think your percentage will be. Again, average is 8%. And let's jump to the next category, which is communication. So communications, I like to think of this as all things technology. So we're talking about internet service. It says cable, so yeah, definitely there's cable, but I'm also including streaming services in here since that's a little bit more prevalent now. So streaming services, cable package, internet, and all the technology that goes along with it. So, like your iPads and, TVs and computers and cell phones. So that's the stuff that is encompassed in this category of communications. Average is 5%. So you can go ahead and write that in if you have not already. 5% is average. On the above average, Let's just talk what that looks like. So above average would be, maybe you have all of the streaming services. Maybe you've got that full cable package with HBO and you've got Disney Plus. Well, yeah, see, yeah, exactly. You're just like, I want it all. I want all the stuff to watch whenever I feel like. That could put you in the above average. Average, you have the basic stuff. Maybe you have a couple of streaming services, but you don't have them all. You're good with a couple. And then, below average, maybe you just have the basic cable package and, one or two streaming services that you really like, but you don't really get into streaming all that much. So that would put you in below average. So think of that. And then next thing is the phones. So I know Apple just announced their new iPhone 14 that just came out. Are you somebody who loves to replace their phone quite often? Are you buying new phones every year? You're like, oh gosh, please Apple, take all my money. Then that would put you in the above average category here. If you're more average, that would be, I buy phones. I try and stay somewhat up to date, but I'm not buying the newest thing because it's just like the old one. Maybe you fit into more above average, or I'm sorry, average. And then below average is you only replace it when you need it. You're like, you know what? Had this phone, had it for years. It's still running strong. It's a champ. I'm gonna rock it till it breaks. So yeah, exactly. I have a friend and the screen's all cracked. I don't know how he uses text, but he keeps it. So I'm like, hey man, whatever works for you. Just don't, put yourself on the glass. But that would put you in maybe the more below average category. So think of, cell phone usage and how often you're buying. Also, we talked about internet. So what kind of internet do you see yourself having in retirement? So maybe you want the high-speed internet. Maybe you're somebody who envisions, friends and family all gathering all the time. And you're like, you know what? I've got to have that high-speed internet because I'm going to be doing a lot of entertaining. There's going to be people over for the holidays. We need the fast stuff. So I'm going to get the best package when I get into retirement. Maybe you just, what, I'll probably do some entertaining, but I'll have, internet. It's not going to be crazy or anything, but
Yeah, you're over to see me, you're not here for my internet.
right, yeah, exactly. I
I'm
know.
retired.
What's the Wi-Fi code? Yeah. No. Ooh, thank you, Sarah. And no internet. So I don't know who goes with no internet, but if that is you, that might be the yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then smart devices. So think of iPads, all of those good things, computers. Are you running a whole bunch? If it's so, probably above average. Or maybe you don't have that many smart devices that would put you below average. But go ahead and think what you would fall into. Again, high percentage would be 8%, low 2%, and anywhere in between. And jump in. All right, our last category is gifts and donations. So yeah, very, very special, very touching. Average percentage is 5% there. So something, sometimes that, slips your mind is, what am I gonna do, as far as gifts go and donations when it comes to retirement? And this depends on a few factors. The first is your family size. You have a large family and, you plan to have lots of kids and, you have lots of grandchildren. Well, if you plan on giving gifts and you have a large family, that'll probably put you above average. So keep in mind your family size. And then what kind of gifts? Are you somebody who's like a huge gift giver? That's what, what you're known for, and you love to give these, very expensive and generous gifts. That might put you in the above average category. Or, maybe more modest, maybe you have a smaller family and, you're giving smaller gifts. That would put you below average. And then also think of contributions to churches/charities. Do you have an organization or a church that you, like to give to a lot? If so, that might put you above average, or if not, maybe below average.
Our alumni network would be one place you could
Oh,
donate.
there you go. Yeah,
There you
that
go.
is perfect. Yes, yes. So again, average 5%, and jot in what you think you might be in. I'll turn it over to Sarah.
All right, so now is the part where we make all of this make sense as far as the math goes. So those of you who are on Zoom and using the PDF, it should have given you a total already. Those of you in the room with us, if you would take out your phones and your calculators and add up under your calculation, what all those numbers from food and clothing to other and have 5% the other, and write down that total there at the bottom. So I'm gonna give you a second to do that. And everybody should know their total. Now, before I explain this, I need to make a note. And that is that this is just an estimate. Legally, I cannot tell you how much to save to retire for retirement. But there are also many factors that go into this that could change. So this is to help you figure out approximately how much you should save for retirement based off of this activity, your current lifestyle, and your dreams. So again, totally approximate, just a starting point. Now, once you have that total, we're gonna have you do some more math. And those of you on Zoom, you might want to grab your phones as well to be able to do this part with me. Yes, this is an estimate. Thank you, Jamie. All right. So here is the math that I need everybody to do. You are going to multiply that number that you got, so your total, by 60, and then divide that by 100. And you're gonna write that down there at the bottom of your paper where it says your estimated post-retirement income replacement needs. So your number times 60 divided by 100.
So your percentage.
It's gonna be the percentage that you got in your total times 60 divided by 100. And then write that number in post-retirement. Everybody is supposed to do that. $60 times your number divided by. And I'm just creeping around and make sure numbers look approximately correct in here. All I'm doing. I'm not trying to spy on your life or anything. Just want to make sure math is happening. See, I was an English teacher, not a math teacher, so.
Geez, I'm expensive.
All the hobbies, all the stuff.
Okay, so what does this number mean? This number represents a percentage of your pre-retirement income that you should save for each year of retirement based off of the lifestyle that you talked about. Okay, what does that mean? May I write on the board here? So let's say, and this is 100% an example, but let's say our example person was making $100,000 a year pre-retirement. It's a nice salary, I like that. Now, based off of the national average here, which is 66% is that number they get at the end. If they were to say totally on average, then what they would do 60 times 100 divided by 60. They get this. Oh, that's sorry. The example was 110. My apologies. If somebody were to say totally on average, they would be replacing 60% of their pre-retirement income. Now, this person, their number was 110. So their estimated post-retirement income replacement needs is 66%. So if this person making 100,000 was to replace at that percentage, then what they would want is to save approximately 66,000 per year of retirement. So that can add up really quickly, is one of the things that we want to point out. So in order to figure out how much you should save to do your goals, you would take your percentage and take your pre-retirement income and figure out how much of your pre-retirement income you should save based off of that percentage. So whatever number times your percentage equals how much per year you might need in retirement. There are a few factors that impact this, and I know we're coming up on time, so I wanna make sure I explain everything, but also be respectful of your time. One is if we are not living comfortably or our current income isn't reflective of where we'll be, it's kind of hard to do that math right now. So if you're in a situation where maybe right now you're transitioning between jobs or some other factor, maybe you don't even have a job right now, 66 or whatever your number is times 0 is still 0. So you cannot do the calculation that way. So in order to best figure out how much you should save for retirement, what I would recommend is figure out how much you think you'll be making in your ideal position in your ideal career per year, and then do the math from that number, or how much you think you would need to make to live comfortably currently, and then do the math from that number. Because if you're not in a situation where you're comfortable or it's representative of most of your life, then multiplying this by your pre-retirement income currently doesn't really make sense. So you might have to make it make sense to figure out your savings goals to be able to figure out that how much you should save to live the lifestyle you want. But this number times your hopefully realistic ideal pre-retirement income should tell you how much per year you should save. Another factor is inflation. Typically, they say to adjust this number for inflation. There are some inflation calculators out there that will help you figure out how to make those adjustments based off of when you think you want to and can retire. So that's how you do the math for this. Now, the experts out there in the world, they say that people should save 70 to 80% of their pre-retirement income. But a lot of our numbers were lower. And the reality is that the average retiree only spends about 60% of their pre-retirement income, according to the data that's out there. So while they're saying save 70 to 80, that's giving it a nice buffer for what the average seems to really be. And this activity has already helped you figure out, based off of your lifestyle, approximately what percentage might work for you. Now, a lot of people haven't been saving for retirement. The younger somebody is, the more likely they haven't been saving for that already. Data shows that 70% of people ages 18 to 29 haven't started saving for retirement yet. And people who are in retirement age, 14% of them still aren't saving for retirement. I know savings is hard, and if you've taken any of our classes, we talk about how important it is. There's this concept known as pay yourself first that prioritizes savings. And if you want to retire and live the retirement dream that you thought about today, that's something that you should consider including in your budget. And the earlier, the better. This chart shows us if somebody put $10,000 in a 401k and did nothing else to it until it was time to withdraw at age 65, how much money they would have. So this person who's 25 puts $10,000 in. By the time they're retiring, they have over $200,000. They've done nothing else. It's 10,000, let it sit. 45, it's still growing, it's still good, but it's not nearly as much as the person who gave it a good amount of time. That's because of this wonderful thing called compound interest, which is interest that builds off of the interest in the future. It builds, and so with savings, the more time, the more we can have. Now, that doesn't mean it's too late to get started, but maybe now is the time to get started if you haven't yet already. And there are several ways we can do this. So when you are looking for retirement vessels for ways to save for retirement, you're going to see several options out there. Now, I'm going to talk about this one last. This is the employer-sponsored account. But if you're just looking for ways to save outside of your employer, you're going to see these things called IRAs. These are individual retirement accounts or individual retirement agreements, as they are referred to from the IRS. And these are savings vessels that you can utilize as an individual on your own. Now, what you're going to notice with these IRAs is that there are two kinds. There's traditional and there's Roth IRA. The difference between these two comes down to when the money is taxed. So with a traditional IRA, you get the tax benefit in the year that you contribute. So if you were to contribute this year, you wouldn't pay taxes on that money right now, you would get the tax benefit, but you would pay taxes on that money the year you withdraw. So what I pay now would pay with you when you withdraw in retirement with the traditional IRA. Another thing worth noting about the traditional IRA is that there are mandatory distributions, so you must take money out starting at age 72. The Roth IRA, you pay the taxes the year you contribute, and then as long as the money is drawn after age 59 and a half, it is not considered taxable income. So pay the taxes when you contribute after tax, and then when you withdraw, you just withdraw. Don't worry about paying taxes as long as it's after that age. Another thing with Roth IRAs is that there is no mandatory distribution age. I don't tell you when you have to pull the money out, and as long as you're pulling it out after 59 and a half, then you don't pay taxes on it. So that's pretty cool. Typically, the rule of thumb with this is that if you think that you will be in a higher tax bracket in retirement, people typically represent Roth. If you think you will be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, people typically represent traditional. But I do recommend you meet with a financial advisor and figure out which one works best for you. And you can have both, but there are maximums for contributions. The maximums change each year. So look up the number to see what it is this year. And with IRAs, if you have those, the maximum is split between both of them. So you can't like go all the way up to the maximum in one and then all the way up to the maximum in another. It's split, so it has to meet the maximum of the IRA. And if you are over 50, you get currently an extra $1,000 in what's called catch-up contributions. So $1,000 over what the legal maximum is for everybody else under 50. Now, there is also the 401k plan. These are employer-sponsored account retirement accounts, and they can be Roth or IRA, or sorry, Roth or traditional. Again, that has to do with when the taxes are paid. And employers often match up to a certain percentage. So you put money in, your employer matches more money. It's a pretty great thing to take advantage of if you have that as an option for you. And some employers will even donate whether or not you are like giving to that at all. So that is great if they offer it. Those are great things to look for. If you're looking for jobs, is the 401k plan, because that can really help with that retirement savings. And on top of that, the 401k plan maximums, which they do have them, are notably higher than the IRAs. And you can have a 401k and IRAs and max out both of them if you want. So those are different retirement vessels that you all will see when looking for retirement savings plans. And sorry, we went a little bit over. We did a lot of daydreaming today, but that is all we have to share with you. And we'll take questions, especially about your worksheet if you have any. But it was great to talk to you all about retirement today and do some daydreaming and get to know you all. And I hope you all have a great day.
So Karen had a comment, we just covered this in intro to finance. Roth IRA is a better choice for youngsters just getting started with savings if they are in a lower tax bracket. So very similar to what you said, Sarah. And then she said all withdrawals after 59 and a half will be tax-free. So noted on the slide as well.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if you guys know about Colorado Para. Isn't that a Roth or excuse me, isn't that a 401k?
Are you familiar with that, Michael?
No, I don't know if that like fits into, yeah, it's always like how the businesses are run, so I don't know.
So working for the state of Colorado, everyone has to have a Colorado Para. So So yeah, I'll be sure to swing by and mention that.
Yeah,
'Cause I'm
that's,
curious what that's doing.
that's something I have to do a little more research on to talk to it. But yeah, thank you.
Of course. But yeah, that was all in the chat, so I appreciate your time. Thank you guys for coming out. We appreciate the extra time anytime. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie.
Of
And
course.
thank you everybody for doing state trading with us today. I really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
all so much.
Thank